Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where we develop tomorrow's leaders by bringing you up close and personal with today's top business people. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to the promotion and implementation of social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Mahalo, Evan. Today's guest is Mufi Hanneman, Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu. Mayor Hanneman is also the founder of the Pacific Century Fellows. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Mufi Hanneman. Welcome to our show, Mayor.
It's great to be on the show.
So, as a mayor, what do you do for the City and County of Honolulu?
Well, my job is probably one of the most demanding jobs anyone can imagine. But it's a job that I asked for, so I'm not complaining. But it is basically, if you look at it in terms of a company, it's a $1 billion corporation with nearly 10,000 employees. And if you look at it in terms of what it means to the state of Hawaii, we are 3/4 of the state's population and 3/4 of the tax base in the state of Hawaii. What I do every day, basically, I oversee several departments that look after public safety, such as fire and police protection. We also have sole responsibility for our water resources, our sewers. Most of the roads fall under the city. Parks, most of the parks fall under the city. And then we make a lot of planning and land use decisions that govern development and the like. On top of that, we have to be very mindful of our environmental stewardship, in terms of making sure that decisions that we make today certainly will have implications for tomorrow. Our sole source, or I should say, most of our revenues come from our property taxes, and that's the only authority that the state has given us in terms of raising revenues for the city.
So how exactly do you manage your time doing all of these different responsibilities?
You surround yourself with good people like Jeff Coelho, who's accompanied me here today. But I'm blessed with a lot of great people that are helping me each and every day. Not only people that I've appointed to positions in city government, but loyal and dedicated civil servants, people who have chosen to go into government. And I have a very hardworking staff. I have a wonderful confidential assistant in Ashar who makes sure that my time is managed very well. And that I get to the things that I need to get to. But at the same time, Evan, you need to set aside time for your family. You need time to relax. You need time to exercise. All of that is maintaining your sense of balance. And I have a wife, Gail, who's making sure that balance in my life is maintained.
So why mayor? Why would anyone want to be the mayor of Honolulu?
I ask myself that from time to time. But, for me, it's all about a childhood dream. I went to Fern Elementary School in Kalihi, named after the first mayor of the city and county of Honolulu. And whenever I tell this story, people just find it hard that someone at 8 years of age, at that point in time, wanted to grow up and be a leader in his city and his state. And that's exactly was the case for me. My parents were immigrant folks that moved to Hawaii in 1953. Part of their American dream was to achieve as much education for their kids. And then they wanted us to be in a position to give back and contribute. And I, being the youngest male in the family, I was sort of tagged with that responsibility. My parents had this American dream for one of us to go to Harvard. So from Iolani School, I went off to Harvard, and I just knew that one day that I wanted to be a leader. So I've chosen a life of public service. Others, for some of us, we're recruited, or some of us, it's a court of last resort to go into public service. But for me, it's something that I've always wanted to do. So I've planned for a career in public service.
So what was the path from Harvard all the way till today as mayor?
Well, at Harvard, I majored in government. That was my major back then. And at Iolani and elementary school, I borrowed books about political science, about biographies and history. So after I graduated from Harvard, I went on a Fulbright fellowship to New Zealand, where I wanted to study again government structures in the Pacific. From New Zealand, I came back to Hawaii because one of the things that I wanted to do was give back to my community. So I went into education. I taught at Iolani School. I coached the varsity basketball team. But I knew that I was going to go into government sooner or later. So my first mentor was Governor George Ariyoshi. I was an administrative assistant to him. Midway through that, I should say after the first year, I wanted to fulfill another ambition of mine, which was to be a White House fellow. And so I took 2 stops to Washington, D.C. I made 2 stops in Washington, D.C. One was to work for the Carter administration, and I was on loan to them thanks to Governor Ariyoshi and the Department of Interior. And the second time I applied for a White House fellowship, which is the idea I got to form the Pacific Century Fellows that we'll talk about a little bit later. But that was an opportunity to go and work in Washington, D.C. for a year. as a special assistant. In my case, I got to work in the White House for then Vice President George Bush in the Reagan administration. Then I came back home and decided that it was time to go get some private sector experience. So I spent 6.5 years with C. Brewer and Company, at one time Hawaii's oldest company, that gave me marketing experience, business experience, lobbying experience, you name it, even neighbor island experience. I moved to the Big Island and lived in Ka'u and in Papaiko. And so knowing that, this was all in preparation to go into government or go back into government, I then got the job as the Director of Business and Economic Development and Tourism for Governor John Waihee. When the Waihee administration's term ended, I then decided to take another plunge into politics, and then I went on the City Council in 1994, was reelected in 1998. During my time there, I also served as the chair of the City Council. And then in 2000, because I was concerned about the direction that the city was going into, that we were maybe spending too much money and resources on what I called nice-to-have projects as opposed to need-to-have projects, I ran for mayor. I lost to then Mayor Jeremy Harris, but I knew 4 years later I was going to make another run at it because this is what I really wanted to do. So in 2004, I ran and I got elected mayor of Honolulu.